Hi everyone, welcome back to Plum Mashable. So today I'm making a card using the brand new Nativity mini kit from Uniquely Creative. So let's go ahead and get to it. Alright, so for today's card I'm going to be making something using the new Nativity set from Uniquely Creative. This is one of their mini kits. So I'm grabbing in this piece of paper. This comes with the kit. I'm just cutting this in half so that I've got just the star side. I love these papers because you get the two on each side, and obviously it's all kind of colour coordinated, so when you get the cutter parts and everything goes together. It just makes it really easy. So I've got this piece, and this is the piece that I'm going to take most of my palette, like colour palette ideas from. And then I'm grabbing in my stitched rectangles. This is the second largest, stitched nesting slimline rectangles. And this is the second largest one. And I'm going to cut out a base. And this is what we're going to work on for most, like for the background of the card. I'm going to add in a ground. I'll work out how to do that in a minute. Now, when I'm using pattern paper, I always like to try not to stick anything. If I'm sticking washi tape down to hold it down, I try not to stick on the inside of the paper. And that way, if it does happen to pick something up, it's not the worst thing. It's not going to sort of damage the outside of my card at all. And if you're clever about where you cut it, means that you don't waste too much of the paper. There we go. So it should just fall straight out. So there's our sort of card base. We'll put something else on there in a minute as well. So then what I'm going to do is just grab in my stamps and just sort of work out where I want to put my critters. Now what I love about this nativity scene is that there are lots of Australian animals, which I just think is really cool. So we've got a little echidna, a little wombat, the big emu, and then we've got the nativity family sort of as koalas, which is just so cute. So you've got the little baby koala, the mum koala, and then a dad koala, but you've also got an angel. And I'm just trying to work out if I'm going to use all the stamps or if I'm just going to use some of the stamps. So this is how I place out my scene so I don't have to colour in more images than I think I should. We might have to just skip the echidna, I think, because I definitely want the emu and I definitely want the wombat. I don't know if there's going to be enough room for the echidna. I can stack these up just a little bit because there can obviously be dimension and things can be in front and things can be in the back. But I just don't want to make it too full. And then for the sentiment, I'm going to use one of the sentiment squares. And so this is why I wanted everything out first, because I'm just not quite sure what's going to fit and how it's going to fit. So I want this gold Merry Christmas. So these square ones just cut down using your trimmer. You don't have to use a die for this one. Whereas obviously the strips, you use the Essentials die. So they're just working out where that's going to sit. It may actually end up being too much square. We may have to change the sentiment. I feel like it's just not quite going to work with the way I wanted to do this. Or, so this is what I love. I love being able to completely and utterly change my mind here. Because I just love that Merry Christmas. I think it's gorgeous. So maybe we do something different and we put the little nativity there and we can flip it back and just make it more simple. I think I just really wanted to use the emu, but the more I'm doing this, the more I'm thinking, no, it's actually so pretty, I don't want to. Okay, so what I'm going to do is on the back of that star page, no, not the stars, have a look. I was sort of hoping I could find a piece that was about that same colour. So I'm just grabbing my cardstock stash. Let's see if we can find something here. This actually looks pretty close. I'll have to work out exactly what colour this is in a minute, but that's alright. That's pretty close. Okay, so what we're going to do, we're going to use these ones, this cardstock, and then I'm just getting out my stitched squares, and I'm just going to see if any of the squares sort of roughly fit. Alright, now I'm very lucky, and I actually have 2 pieces of that cut apart sheet. I'm just wondering if I can make that work if I all use the same size. What I'm trying to do is use all the same size squares. I don't think it's going to work because I think these are just slightly not square, which is fine. Okay, so I'm going to use these ones and just cut out 2 little squares, and they're going to sit on the side. Now, in an ideal world, I'd get my trimmer out, my big one, but I don't want to. I'm just going to cut out how much I need and run these through my die cut machine, and I'll be right back. So we're going to go 1 and have a little panel, 2 and have a little panel, and then have the Merry Christmas in the middle. That actually looks kind of cool with that being slightly different. And we'll put the mama koala on one side, and we'll put the baby koala and the little manger on this side, and then have the Merry Christmas. It got stuck on the bottom of the box. Alright, so I'm just going to stamp these out onto some blending card, and then we'll colour them in. So for my colours, I want to stay reasonably neutral because obviously the background that we've got is just white and gold. So I want to keep that as clean as I possibly can. So the koalas are going to be grey, so I'm going to make them a warm grey, but I don't want to be too dark. So I'm going to stay sort of up to, maybe bring 5. So let's start off with Mama. And I want just a little bit of dark shadow underneath where her little headdress is. I need a little bit here on her ears. And then obviously on her little paws. There's really not a lot there. So then I'm going to come for W4 and just come up a bit, and then we'll go down to W3. So it'll just be a 3 colour blend here. I might need to bring in just a little bit more of that 5. And the cool thing with these kind of critters, so if you think about what a koala looks like, for anyone that doesn't live in Australia, a koala never has beautifully soft, clean, smooth fur. It's always a bit rough. So if you did want to leave it not quite so beautifully blended, you have ways of getting away with it, because a koala's fur is never smooth. It's always a bit lumpy. Alright, and then for her ears, or ear, because you can only see one, I'm just going to put W1 all over. I'm being a bit rough there because I can. But then I'm going to pull in R12, which is a bit more peachy than the normal colour that I use for ears. But I just feel like it just needs a little bit, and then I'm just putting just a little bit on her cheeks. And then for the nose, I'm going to come in with W7, which is not the darkest W marker I own, but pretty close. Because I don't want her nose to be completely dark. Alright, I'm going to go ahead and do Baby. I'm going to do Baby the exact same way. I'm just going to pull down. So instead of using 5, 4 and 3, I'm going to use 3, 2 and 1. So he's just going to be a little bit lighter. His nose is going to be the W7 though. So I'm just going to go ahead and do that quick and I'll be right back. Because there's not much to him either. So like I said, I'm keeping it to a very muted kind of palette here. So I think I'm going to use the E40s, so E42, 43 and 44. Actually, it might just be 44 and 43 for the manger. And then I'm going to use 30, well, actually no. I'm going to use 53, 51 for the hay. I may bring in just a little bit of like a Y32 just to give it a bit more yellow. But I'm just putting the really dark sort of colour here underneath where the hay is sitting, and then a little bit on the edges because I'm trying to make it look sort of roundish. And then because there is such a big colour difference here, this is a very, very big step down. It won't blend 100% perfectly, so this is where I just might need to bring in a little bit of tip to tip. Actually, that's blending better than I thought it would. Sometimes I forget that the cap's not always a perfect representation of what's the marker colour is. We're just going to come back and do some detail. So I haven't put any of the Y23 in yet. I'm just going to kind of add it sporadically. And then hay's a little bit like koala fur. It doesn't need to be perfect. It doesn't need to be nice and smooth because hay's not smooth. So I'm just adding in some sort of random squiggles. And you probably can't see it, but it's there. But it just adds a little bit more yellow to the hay bale and kind of makes it a little bit less smooth. I'm also just going to come in with that really dark kind of brown and just add some sort of like wood marks, and that's going to dry right down straight away. Then if I come in with the E43 on top and just add another layer of that, but just really smooth, really softly, I'm just going to blend it a little bit, but just gives it a bit more texture. Alright, now for their robes and stuff, I need to add some colour in. I can't have this be just plain. I'm leaning towards gold, but at the same time, I don't know, I kind of think that might look too much. Maybe we just need to add in one more colour. And I don't want to do blue. Blue to me is the colour that makes more sense here. So I might bring in a little bit of green, which seems like a weird colour. It doesn't because it's Christmas, but let's go with G28 and G19. I love G19. It's one of my favourites. So if I do green for her, so not like just the underwind, so there's kind of two bits of clothing here and they're just hard to tell the difference, but there's two. If I do green for like the robe part, but then leave the other bit white, I think that will give me the look I'm looking for. So I'm just being very careful while I put in this darker one And then we'll come in with that G19 and blend it out. But it's a very, number one, it's a very Christmassy colour, but it's a very regal kind of colour green. I'm going to come in with a neutral 1, and just add in some shadows for her headdress, because I want that to stay white, but it just needs some detail to it. That's better. And then for the baby koala, I'm going to add the green too, but I'm going to do it in parts. So there's sort of 1, 2, 3, 4 parts to the little wrap. So I'm just going to do sort of these 2 in green, and then I'll do the other one in white and just add the details like I did before. So I went a little bit too heavy there, so I'm just doing the whole thing, but I'm just pulling it back with a lighter grey. Alright, I'm going to go ahead and cut these out and we'll start putting this together. So I do have the matching dies for this set. They don't come as part of the standard mini kit, but if you get the one with the lot, it does. You guys know my opinion on matching dies. To me, it just makes life so much easier. Then we just need to put in some details here, so I'm just grabbing my gel pen, just working out where I want to put these little highlights. And then let's start trying to put this together. So I've got my little squares there, her sitting in her little square, we'll have the little Bubba sitting in their little square, and then we've got the Merry Christmas in the middle. Now I'm just looking at the Merry Christmas and I'm just not quite happy, so I'm just thinking about bringing in another square instead and grabbing from the square set as well. There's one that says Believe. I'm just trying to find it. There it is, and it's got the white with the stars, and I'm just wondering if I cut that down. Let's give it a try anyway and just see which one I like better. Now I'm just going to cut this just on the inside of the stitching. So it's very close still to the inside of the stitching. In fact, I can still kind of see it, so I'm going to fix that. I'm just going to cut it. I'm trying to get it square more than anything else. I just think it will look cooler as a square. I think that's closer to being a square. Let's see. There we go. That's what I want. I want that. And then we're going to raise some of these up a little bit. I'll keep the Merry Christmas and use it for a different card. That's easy. Okay, so I think the only other thing I want to do is just add just a tinsy little bit of dimension to the little cards. So I'm grabbing my brown brush and a little bit, actually, I'm going to use Distress inks instead of Distress oxides for a change. And before I do it, I'm just going to grab Antique. I think Antique Linen is going to be a little bit too light, but I just want to try. So I've just grabbed a bit of my, oh no, that's good. It's basically Antique Linen and whatever's on my brush, which is fine. It's just going to give it a little bit of definition around the edges here. And that's all I want, just a little. think that antique linen added more than I thought it did. So I just brought that in as well, just to finish that off. Alright, let's get to assembling this one. So I'm grabbing out some liquid glue and some UC foam squares. So, I want the believe to be lifted up. So we'll put the little squares all around here. And I always like to add just a couple of extras just to make sure it's solid. Don't forget one in the middle. All right. Lining that one up, and then for the critters here, so I'm going to put them up on tape on foam squares as well. I think the little baby one, I want him to be up just a little bit higher as well, so I'm going to grab one of my other foam tapes that's slightly thinner and use that one instead. Now if you ever have, like, your squares aren't quite the right size or they skip off a little, just trim them down. They cut beautifully, so it makes it easy. Alright, now the only thing I'm thinking still is just do I want to put a sort of sub-sentiment under that believe, or is it okay the way it is? So this one's just got Season's Greetings, and I'm just wondering if I put that on, no, I'm going to leave it the way it is, I think. I'm just going to cut these strips out and just double check that I don't want to do it. I actually don't mind that, just having them up a little bit instead of in the middle, and then having the Season's Greetings on the end, like in the middle. I just think it adds just a little bit of contrast to it because there isn't a lot at the moment. Alright, we're going to do that, and I'll put that up on just that little thin foam tape as well. Or I would if I hadn't run out of it. I have spares. So then I'm going to stick these down, or glue these down. So I'm just working out where my middle is. So I'm using my mat here. Just looks slightly not quite right to me, but I think I'm being funny because I think I'm being funny because it just doesn't. No, that's fine. Okay, so for just finish it off, I just need one more little bit of green because I just feel like it's just missing a little. So I'm grabbing in that cardstock pack again. Let's just check out my green colours. I think this one maybe. No, it needs to come down a shade. No, all right, that's okay. I'm being pedantic. I want this to be right. So I'm going to cut this out of just a piece of white cardstock. I'm going to cut out one of the largest of the scalloped slimline ones. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to colour it in with that green. So this is a little, if you want it to match perfectly, if you're a bit pedantic and you like it to be 100%, this is the way that I like to do it. I'm actually going to... haven't got that piece of cardstock that's quite the right colour. So because we only need this to show out just a tinsy bit, I'm just going to colour it with my Copic marker. So I'm going to grab the G19 because that's the colour that I like the best. And then just with a bit of scrap paper, because I don't want to get this all over my mat, I'm going to use the chisel edge and just run this along. Now it doesn't need to be much because you're not going to see much. And it doesn't need to be perfect or good because you're honestly not going to tell. Now if you want to and you're a bit silly like me, you can do the little nubs as well on the edges. I'm going to just because I think it just finishes it off a little bit. But I'm also not going to go too crazy because when I was doing it just then I noticed that it just does something funny to the edge. So I'm just gently running it along, and if it's only in the ups and not the ridges, I think that's okay. Alright, so then we're going to put, actually it might need to be the darker green because it just looks a bit too green. Alright, hold on, we'll just do, before we put the dark green on, we'll just do another layer. I so love that this isn't even hitting that piece of paper. I'll just do 3 just to deepen it up a little bit. That's better. That's better. Now it's got that slightly deep green that these are. So I'm going to just mount that on there. I'm just going to use not foam tape, glue tape for this one. So I've got some height behind this, so I'm just trying to be gentle so I don't bend anything or hurt anything. And the reason I use glue tape for these ones, I'd either use glue tape or liquid glue because I just want to make sure I've got time to be able to make sure it's straight and I can pull that up and change it. And then last but not least, we're just going to put this down onto a card base. So I'm just grabbing a piece of cardstock and we'll just measure that and fold it. If I have to trim it, that's fine. Whoops. Went rogue. That'll be fine. You'll never notice it. And just trim that off. Just stick that down on there. So I don't mind if there's a little bit of that white showing through around the outside. I think that actually looks kind of cool. So I'll just go ahead and stick that down. I'll just trim off that excess afterwards. And there we've got our Nativity Christmas card. It's not, I feel like I'm just not quite 100% straight, but I think I get away with it because of the wonkiness of the others. I'm really happy I put that sentiment at the bottom. I think that's just made it. It just needed a bit of contrast. It was a little too green, if that makes sense. Just going to grab one more quick thing. So this is a glaze pen. It's a Sakura one. It's just a clear one. I just want a little bit I don't want to change the colour though of the noses on my koalas. So I'm just adding this glaze on top. It's just like using glossy accents, but it's because it's a little bit smaller, it's got some control to it. So I've just done that just to add a little bit of shine to the top of the card because it was just missing something. It just looked a bit uneven. So now it looks even again. So anyway, that's my nativity card using the Uniquely Creative new mini kit. It's called Nativity. It is beautiful for Christmas. There are so many wonderful things you can do with it. So if you want to check it out, it is now live up on the Uniquely Creative website. You can go check it out. I will link it down below. If you did enjoy this card, please give it a big old thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe and don't forget to check out all the other beautiful cards made by the design team over on the Uniquely Creative website and the blog. Make sure you follow me on Instagram as well. I hope you have an absolutely awesome rest of your day, and I'll catch you again in my next video. Sending lots of huggles. Bye!